Hi everybody, welcome back. And if you're new, welcome. If you've never been here before, never watched any of my videos, have no idea what I do on my channel, I cover true crime cases and all the cases that I cover are a little bit older. They're all basically 20 years or older. So if that's something that you might be interested in, maybe go down below, click that subscribe button, and also make sure to turn on the post notifications to be notified every time that I upload. So today's video is a collaboration. I am yet again working with one of my favorite researchers, Michelle Short. She is a researcher for the website Hub Pages. Her and I have covered many of the same cases, and in my opinion, we're quite alike in the way that we tell the cases that we decide to research into ourselves. Her write-up for this case and the rest of her case write-ups will be linked down below in the description of this video. Today we are covering another disappearance case. This one of a teenager who said that he wasn't feeling well, so he decided to stay home from school, but when his mother arrived back home, she found that there was a note left behind, she couldn't find him anywhere, and he has never been seen since. There are some extremely strange aspects to this story though. With all of that being said, this is the unsolved disappearance of Christopher Kerze. Christopher Matthew Kerze, nicknamed Chris or Rico, was born on February 19th of 1973 to Lonnie and Jim Kerze. Lonnie and Jim were proud parents of 3 boys, Christopher being the eldest. After Christopher came Tim and then Patrick. The Kerze family lived in Eagan, a city in Dakota County, Minnesota, mostly known for its parks, most notably Lebanon Hills Regional Park. Christopher himself loved the outdoors. He grew up taking frequent camping trips with his family. He enjoyed skiing, laser tag, and was a member of his school's varsity swim team, a team that he had been a part of since freshman year. Other than physical activities, you could have found him indulged in the pages of a good book or sitting behind the screen of a computer. Christopher was somebody that had so many different hobbies, it really didn't end with him. He also played clarinet. He was attending Henry Sibley High School, which would later be named Two Rivers High School. Like what so many people say about Christopher when they research into this case, he was definitely living a pretty normal life of a teenage boy at the time. A lot of the time when you're going through those teenage years, you will kind of distance yourself from your family. You'll be spending less time with them and more time with your friends. But Christopher definitely spent a lot of time with his father, his mother, and his 2 brothers. When it came to his friends, he was a sweet kid. He was kind to anyone that he met, but he definitely had a smaller group of friends than a larger group of friends. He was somebody who was quite shy, a bit reserved. Christopher was incredibly intelligent though. This is obviously something worth noting. He was a very smart kid. He was a National Merit Scholar semifinalist and was even invited to join the National Honor Society. He was definitely a son that any parent would have been honored to have. A kind and talented boy who was growing into a respectable young man. Parents may fear that their child could possibly go down a wrong path in life at some point, but Lonnie and Jim felt reassured that Christopher was on a good path. About his son, Jim Kerze was quoted saying, "He was a guy who, when he decided to do something, he would do it. What you need to know is he's always been a very great kid. He was a smart kid, a good sense of humor." Now let's discuss the day of Christopher's disappearance. On the morning of Friday, April 20th, 1990, 17-year-old Christopher Kerze woke up at the usual time he got up for school, but on this day, something was different. He informed his mother that he had an intense headache and wanted to stay home from school. He was somebody who took his education seriously. He rarely ever missed school, so his mother believed that he had to have been suffering greatly from this headache. She agreed to let him skip school. His father was gone on a business trip, so he had no say in this decision or knowledge of the absence at the time. His mother worked at a local elementary school, so she had to be out the door soon to make it to her classroom to get ready for the day. Lonnie told her son that she could stay home with him if it was truly that bad, but he told her that he would be okay and to just head to work. So she did. She gave him some pain medicine and walked out of the family home that day, saying goodbye to her son, not knowing that that would be the last time that she would see him. The day went by as normal and Lonnie got home from work. When she did, she knew that something was wrong. As soon as she got home, she noticed 2 things. The first was that the family vehicle, a blue 1988 Dodge Caravan, was gone. The second was that the family dog, BW Bowser, was running loose in the front yard. If their dog was outside, he was usually on a leash and of course had a collar on, but he was never left outside just alone to run. Loney got their dog inside and looked around the home, soon realizing that Christopher was nowhere to be found. But he did leave a note behind for her. The note read, "Mom, something important came up, plus feeling somewhat better. Back by 6, in parentheses, unless I get lost. Love, Chris." Something about this letter that many have found odd, but Loney herself feels she knows the reasoning for, is the fact that Christopher had underlined the word lost twice. Others may look at this as strange considering what would end up happening, but Loney has stated that it was simply a joke in the family. Christopher hadn't been driving very long, and due to that, he often got lost. It happened multiple times before, so she thought nothing of him underlining the word lost. You have to remember that this was 1990. This was a time before we had GPS just so easily accessible, so if you didn't know an area too well, even if you did know an area kind of well, you could easily get lost. The point is, we most likely know why he underlined lost twice, but the letter was extremely vague. What had come up? Where did he go? Christopher was not the type of person to just leave his loved ones worrying about him. So whatever it was that came up, it must have been something that he figured he would be done with and able to be back home within a short amount of time. Or at least that's what Loney thought. When hours passed and Christopher still was not home yet, Loney had a feeling that something had happened. She trusted her son to make the right decisions in life, but sometimes you can never be too safe in this world. Loney called her husband and told him what was going on. He decided to cut his business trip short and head home. Loney and Jim attempted to report their son missing at midnight that night, but authorities informed them that they had to wait 24 hours before they reported him missing. Now, we have discussed the rule with departments where you had to wait a day or two before reporting someone missing. It is mostly due to the fact that a large percentage of missing individuals turn up within that day or two, but unfortunately, at the same time, that first day or two can be crucial in finding a missing person. I have covered so many missing persons cases on my channel, and in almost all of them, the family was told to wait either 24 or 48 hours before reporting them missing. In some of those cases, they are even told that they have to wait 72 hours before the department themselves can even begin physically helping in the search. Think about how many things that can happen in 1 to 2 to 3 days. Think about how many miles you can travel in just 1 to 2 to 3 days. Loney and Jim hung up the phone, terrified at the reality of their situation. 6 hours had passed since the time Christopher promised he would be back home by. This was completely out of character for him. They knew that something had to have happened to prevent him from making it home that night. The family waited the 24 hours and then they were able to report him missing. The day after he went missing, though, his parents received a heartbreaking letter believed to be from Christopher himself. The letter was postmarked and it had come from Duluth, Minnesota, which is a port city on Lake Superior, which is about a 2.5 hours drive northeast from Eagan. In this letter, he states that he completely faked his illness that day to be able to stay home from school, so he could gain access to the family van to go, quote, to not even I know where. He went on to say that he plans to take his own life and that he is sorry to the ones that love him. In this letter, he wrote, "Take heart, because if just one person is better off for having known me, my life will not have been wasted." Jim and Loney were devastatingly shocked, and I don't feel like you need to be a parent to be able to sympathize with what they were going through, how their lives came to a halting stop at that point. He could have already taken his life or was extremely close to it or was planning to in a few days and was just trying to experience a little more of life before he did. They had no idea if when they were reading that letter, if he was still alive or not. They were left in the dark, but they knew that if the letter was written by him, that he had been in Duluth. To them, that was at least some clue as to where he had gone. When it comes to his mental state beforehand, it did seem like he had been going through some things, but they never suspected it was that serious. If he was contemplating taking his life for some time, he had been keeping this to himself because it took them all by surprise. If he was struggling with severe depression, it is also unknown if this was something he had slowly developed over time mentally or if outward factors were causing this depression. Depression doesn't always stem from a tragedy, but had there been one in his life, it didn't seem like his parents were aware of it. Jim Kerze described the anguish, saying, "I tell you, when people talk about their heart sinking, I used to think that was some metaphor. It is not. You can be so torn up that your heart actually feels like it is dropping. It weighs a lot. It's a moment that I hope never to live through again." From there, they would go on to discover that the day Christopher left, he took $200 out of his savings account. Then Christopher's younger brother, Patrick, discovered that Jim's O.F. Mossberg & Sons 20-gauge shotgun was missing from its usual spot in the house. They decided to check where the ammunition was stored, which was a different location, but all the ammunition was there. So it seems like Christopher had taken the shotgun, but no ammo. The next day, Sunday, April 22nd, another discovery was made. This time, the family's van was located by authorities. It was discovered abandoned in a wooded area near the Continental Divide Wayside Rest on Highway 38 near Grand Rapids, Minnesota. Grand Rapids, Minnesota was also coincidentally where Christopher's grandparents lived. His grandparents were asked if they had seen or heard from him, but they said no. When the vehicle was searched, it didn't seem like anything was out of the ordinary, but the keys were left in it and a note left behind, believed to be written by Christopher, simply saying who the vehicle belonged to. Law enforcement conducted a search of the woods. This search included cadaver dogs. They did get a hit that led them about a mile into the woods off Highway 38, but it seemed like the scent abruptly ended. As police officer Aaron Mocktim stated, nothing was found. So we know that the vehicle was located near Grand Rapids and the letter was sent from Duluth. These are two places that he was believed to have been. Which came first though? Well, authorities did end up speaking to an alleged witness who claimed that they had picked up a hitchhiker fitting Christopher's description and gave him a ride to Duluth. Could he have drove the vehicle to the area where it was discovered in the wooded area near Grand Rapids, abandoned it there, hitched a ride to Duluth, sent the letter from Duluth, and then something happened from there? That is a strong possibility, but this is where the case gets strange. Lonnie and Jim Kerze started to receive phone calls from an anonymous caller only a week after Christopher went missing. The person on the other end wouldn't say a word, but the background was loud, as if they were at a party. It sounded like there was music and people chatting, a very lively occasion. Then, soon after, their neighbor, also Christopher's best friend, started receiving the same phone calls. Any time that someone tried to say something though, the person on the other end would immediately hang up. These calls occurred at random times and were never able to be traced. Both households never had anything like that occur before Christopher went missing, and his parents believe wholeheartedly that it was their son. They do not believe that it was just a prank call. The calls though, after 6 months, stopped out of nowhere and never started back up again. They could never prove that these calls did come from Christopher, and they could never prove who else they may have come from, but they believed in their hearts that it was Christopher who was calling them for 6 months. It's very peculiar because it wasn't only his home, but also his best friend's home. It either had to be Christopher or someone who knew Christopher well enough to know who his best friend was. If it was, in fact, Christopher who made these calls for 6 months, why he would have done that remains a mystery in and of itself. This is one of those cases where there's a lot of tinier mysteries that make up a much larger one, and that larger one being what exactly happened to Christopher Kerze after he left home on April 20th of 1990, and where are his remains, or where is he today? Years later though, in a rural area of Minnesota, a hunter did locate a discarded gun matching the exact description of the gun Christopher is believed to have taken with him that day, his dad's gun. Unfortunately though, it has never been proven to be the same one. There are ways, like of course the serial number, that a gun could be verified as being someone's gun, but it doesn't seem like they had the means to completely verify this gun as having belonged to Jim Kerze. In the year 2004, the Eagan Police Department did receive an anonymous letter from Seattle, Washington in relation to this case. The writer of this letter referred to Christopher as a guardian angel and asked authorities and everyone else to stop in their search for the missing teen because he would come home when he was ready to. Christopher, of course, wouldn't have been a teen anymore at this time. He would have been 30 or 31 years old. The person who wrote this letter has never been identified. It doesn't look as if it was written by Christopher, and authorities have come to the conclusion they believe it was nothing more than a hoax. But with a letter like this, unfortunately, it is going to give his parents some bit of hope. Hope that he's still alive out there somewhere, and just like the person said in the letter, he would come home when he was ready to. Law enforcement believes that Christopher took his life soon after leaving home, but his family has never given up hope that he may still be alive out there somewhere. They have since moved from their family home in Eagan, but have kept their same phone number all these years, just in case Christopher is alive and decides to call. It wasn't until the year of 2016 when there was a renewed public interest in Christopher's case. This was due to the solving of Jacob Wetterling's case. Jacob Wetterling was an 11-year-old boy out of St. Joseph, Minnesota, who was abducted by a masked man on October 22nd of 1989. This man, who was unknown at the time, let Jacob's brother and Jacob's friend go, but took Jacob. In October of 2015, a man named Danny James Heinrich, who was originally questioned at the beginning of the case, was publicly named as a person of interest in Jacob Wetterling's case. Through DNA comparison, Danny Heinrich was linked to the abduction and sexual assault of a 12-year-old little boy out of Cold Spring in January of 1989. This little boy did thankfully make it away and live. Danny Heinrich decided to cooperate with authorities as a part of a plea bargain and led them on September 1st of 2016 to where Jacob Wetterling's remains were buried. This solving of Jacob Wetterling's case truly put the spark back in a lot of cases, including Christopher's. It pushed Eagan Police to recanvass the area around where the Kerze van was located and also speak to locals again to see if anyone had seen anything back in 1990. Unfortunately though, at the end of the day, this didn't bring forth any answers. Detective Stephanie Bulks was the main person at the Eagan Police Department that handled Christopher's case from when she started at the department in 1993 until she retired at the end of 2019. As Star Tribune reported on November 29th of 2016, Detective Bulks kept a photo of Christopher on the top of her computer and was constantly looking for new leads, examining dental records of unidentified John Does and applying new technology that had not been available back in the early 90s. The disappearance of Christopher Kerze was one of those top cases for Detective Bulks for basically the entire time that she was at the department. And it was one of those cases that she was really upset to see left behind when she left the department, knowing that it was still unsolved. In that same Star Tribune article, Jim says, "Good or bad, we would be indifferent to the resolution, whether we find out what happened to him, learn that he needs help, or have a chance to reconnect with him." He went on to say, "I think we realize this isn't our tragedy. It's Christopher's tragedy and what he was going through." Christopher's family was truly hoping that some new leads would be generated in 2016, but like I said, not much came of it. Jim said, "Resolution is a funny thing. We aren't going to know anything about what happened to Christopher until one day when we'll know everything that happened to Christopher. So the idea here is to generate enough noise so that we can begin to find resolution." If Christopher Kerze is still alive today, he would be 51 years old. He is a Caucasian male with brunette hair and brown eyes. He stood at 5 feet 11 inches tall and weighed 135 pounds. He suffered from facial acne at the time of his disappearance. He wore hard contact lenses or blue wire rimmed glasses. He has a 1-inch scar on his forehead near the hairline and a small red birthmark on the bottom of his foot. He was last seen wearing a mid-calf length acid-washed light blue denim trench coat that came down between his knees and ankles, a size large black cotton sweatshirt, size 29M blue or black Bugle Boy jeans with pockets at the knees, a black leather belt, white crew sweat socks, size 30 JCPenney underwear with a blue stripe and an elastic waistband, size 11 or 11.5 brown leather boat shoes, and a plastic Swatch watch with a black and white zebra striped band. On him was a black bifold leather wallet with his Minnesota driver's license in it. On the screen is a reconstruction photo done by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children to show what he may have looked like at the age of 43. If you have any information regarding the disappearance of Christopher Kerze, you are urged to contact the Eagan Police Department at 1-651-675-5700 or the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children at 1-800-THE-LOST, which is 1-800-843-5678. One aspect of this case that I do have to mention that is very interesting is the fact that Christopher's photo and information was featured in the music video for the song Runaway Train by Soul Asylum. This did bring quite a lot of attention to his case and everyone else's case featured in the music video that was released in 1993, 3 years after he went missing. The video features 36 missing people, mostly children and teenagers. 26 of those have had resolutions in their case, which is absolutely incredible, but 10 still remain unsolved, and Christopher is a part of that 10. In 2022, the director of the music video, Tony Kaye, told The Guardian that the video was, quote, the single most important thing that happened in the history of MTV because it saved young people's lives. If you've never heard the song or watched the music video, I definitely recommend it. It's a great song and it gives me goosebumps every time I watch the music video. I will also have that linked down below in the description of this video. Since researching into Christopher's case, I did of course rewatch the music video for Runaway Train, and I did a little bit of deep diving into some of the other missing persons cases featured in the music video. If you all possibly want me to do a video dedicated to this music video and the cases featured in it, definitely let me know that down below in the comments of this video. Another video that you may want to watch that is not a music video, but just a regular video is the video done by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children 7 years ago on Christopher's birthday. The video features Christopher's mother. It's her talking about some of her favorite memories of Christopher. There's a lot of really sweet pictures and it will definitely tug at your heartstrings. Thank you all for taking a little bit of time out of your day to hear about Christopher's case. This was obviously somebody that was struggling mentally, and we just don't know exactly what ended up happening, and we can't say for certain what came of Christopher Kerze or what he decided to do, but it may have been one of those situations where he didn't want to live anymore, but he didn't want his family to find him in that manner. I just hope that one day his loved ones can get the answers that they've been longing for. If there are any other cases that you possibly want me to cover here on my channel, make sure to send those requests over to gabulosiscaserequests@gmail.com. I hope you all have an amazing rest of your day. Stay safe like always, and I hope to see you in the next one.